Hey, what's going on? Welcome to The Doug Show. My name is Doug Cunnington, and today we're going to get an update from Jamie IF. You might remember him from a couple other interviews. I think it was 2022, and he sort of came out of nowhere, had some really big, successful numbers, and really impressive story overall. He's pretty young. I can't remember how old he said, but he's in his 20s, so makes me look very old. We're going to get into some really cool details on how he's been able to create a few websites. And I think we're going to kind of focus on two of them where this is really impressive. So it's content that's earning about $130 per 1,000 visitors. So that's RPM. These are huge numbers. And we're going to talk about content. We're going to get into details about research, content briefs, outlines, tools that he uses, subheadings. We'll talk about his team, talk about images, videos, other details, everything about content. Now, it's been a while since Jamie's been on, so we do want to get some updates. So we'll cover that first, then we'll hit the content stuff. So Jamie, how's it going today, man?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on again. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the support that you've given me. Especially like when I first decided to open a Twitter account, you were the first person in the community that I spoke to, and then everything sort of went really positively. I've met loads of people since then. So yeah, I owe a lot of that to you, Doug, and I'm very thankful and grateful for that. Very good.
You got it. Yeah. How's Twitter going? I never do much over there, and I take a peek occasionally, and then I hear people talk about it, and then I think, that doesn't sound like something I want to do. And I think it's great to connect with people, but I'm like, I think that would be negative for me. So yeah, what's it look like over there these days?
Yeah. So, I think I've fallen somewhat into the mindless scrolling over and over again, which is like a productivity killer, right? But the upsides have been so amazing. I've spoken to so many people and learned so much more than I otherwise would have learned just from, having conversations and seeing people do threads of the stuff they've been experimenting on and learning, and just that kind of serendipity that you will run into for them to be like, oh, that's interesting. I can apply that without, you want to learn from other people's mistakes. So I've just access to so many other brains, and I've just spoken to people. And so, yeah, it's been such a great experience for me. So I'm glad I did it. I hit 10,000 followers a couple of days ago. So I'm super pumped about that. Before it stops showing the number, it starts to say, okay, I can pretend I'm important now, and I show people. That's all good.
That's cool. That's amazing. So, and that's only been what, 8 months or something like that?
Yeah, I think I started tweeting in July.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And I don't know how many, do you call them followers there? That's how stupid I am.
It's followers.
Yeah. So I don't even know how many followers, but I used to automatically post some stuff, but obviously that is not what it's for. It's just that's spamming the internet. So I stopped doing that, and I'm largely not active. But I think you're doing great over there. So let's talk about Q4. So I know things were going pretty good. You had your site set on some huge numbers for November and December. And I'm curious, 2022 retail season Q4, what did your portfolio do?
Sure. So the first time I came on your show was in that June, July time, and I was doing 32,000 a month. And that was the biggest month, or the second biggest month. It was that was the peak of it. And I remember the second time I came on, I mentioned that the goal when we'd hit 40 on the second time in September, October, I was for these Q4 months, I really want to try and get to 55, 60, but average that. And that would be such a big win. And that's mostly staying mostly stable because ad rates go up, or they're supposed to go up. They didn't go up this time. And people buy more naturally. And so a lot of it was seasonality, but I think we experienced some natural growth in the search as a result as well. We had higher, we changed ad networks so the RPMs rose just across the board. We had a deal in place, so they guaranteed to increase that by 15%. And so we had that as a guarantee. They actually overhit that. We were up by 20, 25%. As well as the affiliate commissions coming in. And so we averaged in November, we did 79K, and in December, we did 81. So in those last two, we averaged 80 for 116 total.
Congrats. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of it, if that's, if anyone's wondering. I'm not just going crazy with it.
All right. Well, in that that brings me to a related question. So if you're able to share, or as much as you can reveal, like what are your expenses, say like for a couple of those months, just so people have an idea, like it's a lot of money, but you're also like in a growth mode situation.
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of the groundwork and a lot of the growth mode stuff in the beginning of the year. So at the beginning of the year, we were only doing it's still crazy amount of money that I've never, thought I would ever get to. But, doing $15,000, $16,000, $17,000, $18,000, $20,000, $22,000 in those like first 6 months of the year, we were spending all of it and more. We were trying to do other projects and stuff as well. And sort of, I was being a bit too victim of the shiny object syndrome, where it's like, I'm trying to do like 8 projects and take on X, other people's sites to grow them for them. It's just, right? You need to stay laser, especially now in 2023 with all that's coming. It needs to be a brand. And so I didn't realize that then. And so we weren't directing the focus and we're spending all the money. But throughout the sort of first half of the year and very much into the second half of the year, we became much more laser focused on the major sites, not using my time on smaller sites, only writing and improving the content on the main sites that we've demonstrated makes a high amount per page view. I became just sort of like brutally efficient. And they're like, all right, we're only going after these ones to make more money. And so a lot of the spending that we did, it didn't really increase. In fact, it went down a bit towards the end of the year because we were just only focusing on those sites. And I haven't built the system to be able to handle more than that because I'm still editing the vast majority of the stuff that comes on there. So we're just not profitable for the first half of the year. And now, like, the margins look crazy now, but it doesn't include and reflect the fact that we weren't profitable for the first 6 months of the year. So yeah, super profitable now, but it amortizes over the year.
Okay. And just, if you're able to share, like, what are the margins for like November and December, like ignoring the fact that you invested earlier in the year? So is it like 80% or something like that?
Yeah, above 85%.
Okay, great. So you did, I mean, this is sort of the classic like passive income situation. You're like, oh, it's passive income, like 90% margin, but really like you invested a huge amount of time and effort and a lot of capital 12 months ahead of time. And now it's paying off. Great.
Yeah, it's the delayed gratification of the like January to June spending. That was a lot of it. And also like it's so passive, it only takes 80 hours a week to maintain.
Right. That's a good workload. So before we hear about some of the, recent Q1 results, we jumped right in, and I wanted people to hear about what results you saw in Q4. Where did you come from? So you mentioned we did the interview several months ago. So when did you get started with niche sites? You can share your age if you want to. Like I said, you're a young guy and you're doing all this pretty cool stuff, huge numbers. So just a little intro to yourself and how you got started with niche sites.
Sure. When we first did our first 2 interviews, I was still 25. I'm 26 now. I feel like he's the only young and up and coming up until 25. So I feel like at the age where it's not cool anymore. Like, no matter what I do, he's 26. He's supposed to have it together by now. Like at 25, it's like, oh, he's still coming with it. Doesn't like it. Within the the young up and coming, young millennial, whatever it is, Gen Z, whatever they call it now. So now I'm old and like out of touch now. So I'm 26. I started in 2019 when I graduated in like September 2019 and mostly like started then. I first made like job replacement income the month that COVID hit in March 2020. That same month, Amazon halved their rates and I wasn't running ads then. And so it literally was a direct half in the rates of Amazon. That sort of spurred me to become much less reliant on one single vendor because it was really like being not diversified is really dangerous when they do something like that. And let's not pretend that Amazon couldn't do that again, which is why there's a lot of cool things that I think are going to happen soon behind the scenes that will change that. So now like Amazon only makes up like 22% of our revenue because we have other affiliate programs and ads and stuff. And so as you know, I don't know why I've gone on top about this, but I will just say whilst we're here, the important thing about building a mature niche site or building a brand isn't just like multiple traffic sources, which is great. You should be building lead magnets and emails and doing all these other things that get you more direct traffic. With the Yandex leak, it's also speculated that more direct traffic is a ranking factor because they had it. I wouldn't discount that entirely. I wouldn't ignore that. I think that if I was looking for correlative factors for high quality sites, it would be traffic that isn't just organic and not just baseless brands. But beyond those, you want to also diversify your like income sources as well as the traffic sources. So we've been trying to do that. And I think that's the hallmark of a site that's like a heavier stone that doesn't get blown around in the hurricane of like Google updates and stuff like that.
Got it. Okay. So full-time income when COVID came around. So you're, relatively new, but you've been doing this for a few years at this point now.
I've got like 3 proper years in SEO. I've been full time for probably like half of that just because I was doing other projects. And I was trying to like do startups and whatever. And I'm now about to go back to like not full time on this anymore. So it's ironic, but I've just never really stuck.
So let's hear about some, recent stuff going on. So there have been a few algorithm updates rolling around. Seems like there's a lot of them these days, like every 6 weeks or something, whether Google tells us about it or not. So what's going on in Q1 2023?
Sure. So 16th of December in 2022, we first got hit. Big decline, especially on our not largest site, but a smaller site that was still doing well. Big decline, recovery at the beginning of January, and then full recovery, and then gradual declines from there. And then as you go further into Q1, February times, we've still been declining gradually. Obviously, some of that is seasonality, but what we're doing now throughout, the Q1 time is to try and really figure out what's changed in the SERPs, because part of it is the SERPs changing. Part of it, we have to write off 15%, 20% for like traffic for seasonality, and that people are less interested in writing best, whatever. People aren't buying loads in February. They're feeling it more, is what it is with that sort of stuff. But where we can change it, we want to change and be as visible as possible. So we're auditing a lot of the content we've gone through. For example, our main site has slightly over 500 posts. We've gone through the top 200, tracked which ones have fallen more than 10%. And sort of we're in the process of auditing all of them now to see what's changed. Is it just the SERPs change and we can't really deal with that and we shouldn't focus our efforts there? We should prioritize what we can have an effect on. Or have we just been like eroded slightly and it's all to play for if we do a bit of tweaks and, if we change our offering some more, if we better reach the search intent, whatever it is. So very much like having been hit by the updates, my current day-to-day stuff is really in the trenches of each article at these top 200. And beyond that, I also want to go and start pruning articles because once you've been around for a few years, you have more and more like decayed content. I think it's just like, it brings a website down. So I'm looking to delete some pages and redirect them, delete anything or get it rewritten if it can be better. And so that's where we're at the moment to try and beat these updates. I've noticed some very interesting correlative trends that I can't hang my hat on and say that's what's each recent announced or unannounced algorithm update is targeting, but I think I have a fairly good idea.
What is it? Tell us.
So there's as we saw, in February, there's a big load of changes, especially for product review sites in early February. And it changed a lot. And we had 2 of our main sites get hit that day on Saturday, whenever it was. I think it was Saturday, about 12%, which is continued. Nothing, it's not gone back yet. And we had another site that got hit 32%, which is a smaller site, which was bigger. And what had happened with that one was a lot of the terms that it was ranking for, this site has 95% just best in the URL. We're not trying to hide the fact that it's just like a straight product review site. People talk about these informational versus commercial ratios, but you can look at that site if you want. Look at the site map. 95% of it just brazenly has best, whatever it is, and it's been growing every up until now. So what happened with this one is for the original seed keyword. So if you remove the best and you go vacuum cleanup or whatever it is, this is not in vacuum cleanup, but I'll use that as an example. The e-com brands have been pushed way up. And so we've lost that, but we actually hadn't lost the best term. So I haven't checked the value per page view on that, but I would assume without having investigated that we haven't lost too much money. We've just lost traffic. So if there's ads on there, you lose some of that money, but I don't think it's disastrous. But more recently, it's completely swung back and they've undone all of that. And so they've decided that they like content sites again for some reason on there. The more worrying drops that haven't rectified themselves are some just have like 15 lines of shopping results now. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to try and argue with that many shopping results. I guess we're just now in position 10, even though we're in position 3. Fine, we'll deal with that. But some of the ones that we can change, a lot of what's happening seems to be like, again, it's trending towards higher DR sites and being more risk averse. And some of the sites that, the DR75s, DR80s that aren't as good have gained a lot of positions in these updates, where Google was previously giving more opportunities to smaller niche sites that have more successfully targeted that particular topic really well. And so we've seen ourselves like losing like the second to the third spot, and then which has caused like a loss of 25% traffic for some stuff because now we just one position lower. Where I think is in a response to AI stuff. Naturally, that necessitates being a little bit more risk averse, and it doesn't mean that they're any less likely to use AI. To be honest, I think they might be tempted to use it even more because they can absorb so much more toxicity with a high DR. But we're seeing trends toward higher DR sites as well in the rankings.
Got it. And the other thing to lay on top of it, and I'm curious your opinion on this. So currently, AI, ChatGPT is really popular, and Bing has added some chat feature. I don't know when that's going to roll out officially for everyone. It sounds like some people actually have that available. So in our little weird counterculture of SEO and niche websites and authority sites and all that, we're testing out Bing. Like I installed Bing and I'd never used it before. Even on accident, I've never even paid attention to Bing. But now I'm like, hey, I'll give it a shot. So Google has what looks like panicked, and they're trying to roll out some AI, some chat features in their SERPs sometime, or at least they're talking about it. And I think, this is going to change the SERPs just generally and how people interact with it, how the algorithm deals with it. And let's face it, looking at some of the algorithm updates from Google in the last year, when you see like a drop and then a swing back and a drop, it looks like they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like they're just like, let's change this flag and then we'll see what happens. And it's devastating potentially for us in some capacity. So do you think the ChatGPT, Bing, OpenAI versus Google is coming into play already? Or do you think it's going to be in the future? Any thoughts? We're just making stuff up, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think that worryingly, in two different dimensions, neither Google or Bing, when it applies to themselves, are terribly worried about misinforming people. And we've seen like on these tests that people have ran on the new Bing that it can be confidently wrong. It spits out wrong prices of products. I think it was Gail from Authority Hacker who has posted some stuff that he's had where it can be confident. In other areas, it's been fantastic. But I thought the threshold for knowledge was so high to prevent misinformation that we would not roll this out for a lot longer because we just accept that some of the stuff isn't true anymore. I'm sure that enemies of the West love this because now it's just so much easier to miss it. And we just got used to stuff being wrong all the time. So it's so much easier to propagandize. In my opinion, regulation should ensure that this isn't allowed until it's 99.99% correct, which is not going to happen for years. But I think it will roll out within the next few months and it will be very impactful. It's even the second part of the reason I'm worried. The first is the fact that I don't think, in the pursuit of growth and market share, either Bing or Google particularly care. Second reason I'm worried is because I think that every single time humanity and people have been offered a new level of convenience at the expense of depth, nuance, and context, I think we've always decided that we don't care about the depth, nuance, and context, or we just accepted like a half answer because it was quick. And that's good for something. If you just want to Google like a news story and you don't have any particular loyalty to any of the newspapers, it's destructive from the newspapers because you can get that quick. And arguably that's helpful. Arguably it's terrible for the journalists on the other side because they've been paid to supply that information. But I understand why that would be useful in some cases. But there are so many more queries and so much more stuff that if given the opportunity to read more about people's curiosity and decide to learn more beyond the baseline is valuable. And I think we're going to lose more and more of that as people just get delivered 50 characters for everything or whatever and try to reduce everything down to like a small, I'm worried because I think it's not to mention the lack of attribution on Google's rollout, which is crazy. How can you just steal from people like this? I think that's the most important part of this whole thing. And I can't believe that they must have consulted their lawyers and figured out that they could get away with that. It's fair use or whatever, because otherwise they'd be, I'm surprised they're not more risk averse with that, especially when Bing, who could be more radical, have decided to play it safe and like attribute source. I don't understand that one. But I'm worried on a humanity side because I feel like we're just going to turn Google and Bing into TikTok and people are going to be happy with half answers and never actually learn any.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be very interesting. And I know it sounds like we could talk for like 2 hours on everything else before we get to the content stuff. So I'll push it ahead, but I think it'll be very volatile. It'll be very interesting over the next couple of years. And I think, there still will be a place for, we may end up going back to like some old school blogging where like people are following a specific person. One of my friends who has a big blog in the personal finance space, it's getrichslowly.org. He was like, I don't know if I want to say bored, but he's like, I'm going to stop doing this and I'm going to take a little break and I'm going to blog on his own, namesake site, jdroth.com, and do old school blogs. Like that's what he likes. And he's not, I think he said he doesn't even have analytics on there. Like he's a writer. He wants to write and he wants people to read it. So it's stories, little lessons, stuff like that he wants to share. And it's not going to be monetized. It's like, he has different drivers and obligations and all that stuff, but pretty crazy times coming ahead. So, okay. Ready to move on?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think it's going to come out. I think that a lot of people have their head in the sand and there's an adapt or die thing, but worryingly, people don't know what they don't know. And often like a good answer to a question tells you things that you didn't know. But if you aren't told that there are these ways because there's a quick answer, it's worrying. And so I think it's like doubly destructive. It's a really big minus EV play for humanity, but people and companies pursue a profit. I'm sure it gets put in or not even profit, because I think it's going to destroy a lot of their business models, but just to not be left behind, they will destroy their own business model and destroy everyone's ability to learn.
Yeah.
So it's all a bit fun, really. What I will say is that news sites aren't done, but unbranded news sites will struggle to swim against the tide. I'm still investing in news sites with other people who have, investing in them and like helping them. I'm still running my own sites and I don't have any intention of getting out. But this is very much a call to action that if you don't have excellent lead magnets, if you aren't the face of your sites, if you aren't spreading out into video, which is going to be insulated against this for a long time, the only way that AI can try and take away video is like speech writing. I actually don't think AI writing is a problem at all. I think that the AI chatbots insert are the only problem. If your content is good, you have no reason to fear an AI. So if you want to do YouTube, you're fine. If you want to do your email newsletters and build a brand and stuff, you're fine. But I think the days very much now of like bestvacuumcleaner.com are going to struggle with this stuff.
Just the random, like you said, unbranded. And I've had, I think maybe just one of my friends, he kind of panicked, right? And he was like, this is crazy. And he's like, I'm selling all this stuff. Like he's like, I'm selling my portfolio right now. I think he may, I don't know. We'll only know like after the fact, but I think maybe he jumped the gun a little bit. But to your point earlier, he did not have a diversified portfolio. So traffic was from one place, monetization was, maybe one or two, maybe like two or three sources. But the big part was everything was based on like the same kind of business model. So even if he had like a few sites and they were earning from different kinds of programs, like it was all largely the same. It's not like he had online properties and then like real estate, which is completely different. And if one goes up and down, like there's no correlation. They're completely unrelated. So all of his stuff was just a little too intertangled and very vulnerable, I think. So
they're buyers. I'm interested to know if the multiples are tanking. I'll buy if they're going down because I know that a lot of this is going to survive and a lot of this is overhyped. There's going to be effects, but if everyone wants to start selling stuff at like multiples, I'll buy them all out.
Yeah. No, I don't, I think he was looking for still competitive. So, 40 monthly multiple, give or take here or there. So still pretty high, I think. So, okay. Excellent. We'll put a pin in that and maybe we'll come back to it sometime in the future when more things have played out. But let's start talking about content here. Before we hit the nuts and bolts, can you describe your team for us so it lays the context for this work that's happening?
Sure. So there's me, just a sort of managing editor, but I'm trying to find people to edit or like manage more and more of the things for me. I have one person who's 4 days a week on one of the sites that he acts as a site operator for, but literally just this week I've taken him off it to like get all hands on deck on the main 2 sites, but auditing more of the content so that we can get it redone quicker because it's got below the level that I wanted it to be. And I'm realizing that the problem is more like there's more work to be done than I factored in. It needs to be done now. But he usually works 4 days a week on the other side. And on his other remaining days, he has another one of our sites that I purchased that he's running and helping grow that is less of like a getting paid for thing and more than like he has like up to 50% equity based on the revenues of the site. So it's like your job. He has a percentage of the revenue above a certain level on the one he works 4 days a week on. But this one is a straight equity to the other one. So it's like a job fun project. I mean, a job. I think it's fun, hopefully. And then the actual like business that he's building with me for the other stuff. We have 2 VAs. One is currently, it's really unfortunate. She's had like a really serious medical problem, so she's not with us working at the moment. But we have another VA who really is helping us to format and publish articles. And then we have a team of 6 writers that write within our Slack channel, like for the sites. As well as like we're outsourcing more and more content now and other stuff.
Can you tell us how much you pay each one of the roles?
So the writers, we're moving them from per word to like a daily rate because more and more as Google wants short and sweet and less place for ads. And so like there was like a misalignment in that like people might be motivated to insert more words or like, write can not as 2 words, which is just annoying to edit because it's like an extra like 8 cents or 10 cents if depending on what the rates are. So moving them, like for example, one of the writers who writes one of our sites, we moved from, it were on something like 8 cents per word and now they just make a straight like daily amount, which lets them like be good. And I prefer that as well because now they can just think about quality. And so if the required time on like one section, and it also means they can optimize content because originally it's difficult to like fix content because they just like it already exists. There's bits here. How do you calculate that on a word rate? So that's helpful for unlocking more value with optimizing. Yeah.
Okay.
So moving them to the like more like nearer to employed, which I prefer because you can just like be more friendly and they care more about the business and they get better at the particular elements of the site at the most value.
Okay, cool. So you have, sounds like 10 people total, including yourself?
I think something like that, yeah.
Okay, perfect. 6 writers, 2 VAs, one person sounds like she's health issues she's dealing with, and then a site operator who's kind of like your right-hand person to help out with, a couple sites. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier you're putting in like potentially like 80 hours a week, like kind of all hands on deck now. So you're working however much you need to, right?
Yeah, like I'm not sure like if you don't want me to mention, but we can cut this out in case you don't want me to mention it. I've agreed to join another SaaS product that's related to this stuff and head up marketing there. And so part of that is I need to give them, and I'm more than happy to, I don't want to make it sound like it's a reluctant thing. I think it's a really exciting project, but I had to do 4 days a week there starting from the next month. And so I'm very much trying to get all the systems in place so that I'm replaceable as possible so they can still run without as direct, like me being a technician in the trenches, like writing and stuff like that.
Gotcha. So have you already hired your replacement?
I'm trying to hire an editor, but then for the remaining like 1 day of the 5 days a week, I'm trying to be able to work out what I can do. So I've got someone who's joining, Actually, there's another member of the team that I didn't mention. They just recently joined. I'm training up to do briefs and things like that. So the thing that I find the worst is like the briefs. I just hate it the most. I find it the most like brain sapping, especially because like a good brief can take an hour to do. It's just like so many different locations and things to sort, and it gets tiring. It's very active and focused to do like 10. So I'm hiring them to do that. And then I will just be hopefully there to sort of assign priorities and see if anything's like particularly going wrong to reassign it based on that and try and keep it ticking.
Okay. Yeah. You just deal with problems at that point.
Yeah. Just be reactive instead of proactive.
Yep. Okay, cool. We'll talk more about that later. So you outline the team. So you have a set of keywords. We've talked about keywords before, but if you want to give a quick, very quick answer on like any keywords, but basically there's like a bunch of keywords that you have in a list, right? You already know what you're going after.
Yeah, we have a massive Excel sheet that we're in the process of importing into Airtable because it's just a lot better, and I recommend everyone does that. So we have all of the published articles. Like, for example, on one side, we've got roughly 500 on. We've got an entire year plan to go to around 900. And so each of those has like different markings for the main cluster, which might just be like vacuums or whatever. And then the subcluster, which might be guides, best or whatever, because you might have a cleaning site that's not just vacuums, it's carpet cleaners that also have guides and best and verses and whatever. And then there's a subcluster that has different things for like the brand or any particular material it's for cleaning especially, or anything like that. And so each of those, and that's why Airtable is better. You can then filter all of them from there to give you like the easiest internal linking and stuff like that. And it just makes it so much easier. So we've got all of these plans that like we did all the keyword research up front, got all of the rest of it based on looking at our lower DR competitors and what they were ranking for that we could just easily take and go number one for an easy, 400 or 500 extra traffic. As well as the stuff that if there's a higher DR competitor, we at least think we can give it a go, and even being second or third is worth enough, so we'll still do it. As well as anything that we don't, like it has no search volume or whatever, but we've just picked it because it supports another piece of content that we just want to really rank, that like there's big rewards for ranking on. So that's all of that. And then it's mostly just picking the stuff in a priority from all of those like remaining hundreds of keywords, and then turning that into a brief that has all the other related keywords to fill out the entity related stuff, assigning that, getting the brief made, giving that to the writer, editing it, and then putting it up. But because we did all the keyword research in January, it's made like the projection part easier, because I can see that, okay, at the end of Q1, we'll have done X amount of these articles. I'll be on schedule. Is there more stuff coming up in the way? Do we need to focus on optimization instead, which means that we need to sacrifice this based on the expected value of these new ones? Is optimization like way better, like in terms of like what we can make money wise? And so I've always been disorganized and not had a firm grasp on the data, so I'm starting to get there. This isn't nearly as good as we want to get, but hopefully, it's better than it was.
How are you assigning or determining the expected value for a given article?
We know what the ad rates are by category, so we prioritize the ones with the highest RPM. We're also willing to target stuff that has less traffic if it's an affiliate post, because I just know that we can make money from those. It's funny that like the ones that we're going after now are like terms that we wouldn't have gone for a year ago, because we're like, I don't need that. Right. And now the way that it continues to consolidate over time, we're like, we'll take that best post with 30 search. There's actually like 400 in some cases, so you can make like $100 a month if you do it right. So we know what we make from category RPMs, and you can apply that to how, like what the earnings per click are on the affiliate programs that you can promote there, to get a rough idea. But honestly, if it's an affiliate post that has anything, I don't even check that. I'll just be like, all right, we need to write this. Okay.
And to clarify, so in case people missed it earlier, you said about 20% of the income comes from Amazon, and you're talking, ad rates and RPM, but really the ad revenue is fairly low. You earn most of the money from other affiliate programs. Is that correct?
So when we did the 80 over November and December each month, it was around 2021 was the ads. Now, so it's about a quarter. Now we've lost so much affiliate revenue in Q1. It's gone from being a quarter to like 40%, 42%. And so we're more reliant on ads than ever now.
Okay. And that is taking into account the lower ad rates right now that we're dealing with in early 2023. So
my ad rates are not lower than they were in November and December.
Okay. Okay. So you're in some spot where it's been stable. So that's good. Okay, great. Okay. So you have the set of keywords you're prioritizing. You have some expected value based on a couple different areas, knowledge that you now have, data that you understand. So what's the research like? You mentioned content briefs a couple times. Does that include the outline? What is in the content brief?
Sure, they'll probably get better now we've done this auditing over the stuff that's fallen in traffic, because we've had to get so much more detailed for this. I feel like we just got better at like the SEO. Like the good thing about failure is you have to like find new levels, right? And I'd rather not. I'd rather coast forever. But it's been interesting these last few days discovering like the different places that we can gain, a bit of an edge on the competition by like finding new things. So the brief and the sort of audit for like republishing is mostly similar, because you check all the same things. You either just write them from scratch or you make them better. So for making a new piece of content, we'll start from a new piece. We won't do the audit. First thing we've already validated the keyword to start this, because we've done the keyword research separately. We see there'll be a note in the spreadsheet that says XYZ competitor gets 408 Ahrefs from here. Okay, we can target this. So we've already we don't have to validate it again. Occasionally, there's some limitation. There's 5 videos, fine. That's a rare case, is what it is. Leave it there. So on that note, start off, have a look. Is the start all good? Is it all videos now? Is it all shopping for like 10 rows? If it's not, right, let's go. We have a brief template. It's different based on if it's information or affiliate. And it's got like, there's a bit at the top that says fill this in last, which is like you go down it and then you fill it in, which is what is our key differentiator? What is the weaknesses in the competition that for the writer reading this, they need to focus on these parts. So sometimes it will be, they don't include FAQs, which actually means nothing, because an FAQ doesn't change anything, and therefore they miss out on XYZ things. These are key to the actual buying process. And so we should focus on these because these differentiate us. Beyond that, if it's an affiliate post, we go, what is the exact search intent and what are people looking for? We have some like example ones that we want to fill in. For example, the reader's a beginner who's just doing exploratory research. They haven't bought a vacuum cleaner yet, but they're in the experimental search stage or whatever. They are looking to buy XYZ. Because of the nature of the keyword, they've got a lower budget than average. And so we should definitely, in our language, we should be more comforting for like, you can get good value for lower money, whatever, and recommend them lower priced products. I mean, I love this from Craig, from my content pal, but he said that like he puts like a really expensive product like on the right, so that like even the normal ones look cheap now for these ones, but I don't do that yet. It's a clever idea though, like the anchoring. So what exactly are they looking for? Are they likely to have already bought a similar product, or are they new? That will change what language you use, what headings you use. Do you start with what is a vacuum, or do you just go straight into it? Beyond that, we have the keywords and the competition to check out. We've now recently started, like, if there's a supporting heading underneath the product reviews, we'll even like paste the YouTube video that we want them to watch to get the key info from there, because it's relevant and it'll allow you to write a snippet or whatever. If there's a snippet, we add the title in, and then we have brackets, like feature snippet in there, just to know that there's a difference between how to write that heading versus not write it. The FAQs and that go at the bottom. You can find those on Ahrefs, as well as like checking the sub. You can use SEO Minion to scrape all the people also ask if you need to. There's other tools like search response and whatever that do that as well, with like related searches and stuff like that. The main thing that we're doing differently recently is that, in my opinion, the easiest way to show a high quality buyer's guide is like a best article is the buying guide, like things to consider when choosing a vacuum. And then you have H3s for all the key points to discuss. I think most people don't do these well enough. So what we'll do is we train the writers to write them like, okay, so you want to do the power of the vacuum or whatever. But, what does it mean for them? So let's say it's a best vacuum for kitchens. Like talk about how like it'll actually make a difference to their particular, like having a more powerful vacuum makes it easier to clean up apple pie when you've made it, whatever it is in the kitchen, like something to do with something that they can identify with and actually makes a real difference to them, which is one of the reasons they're searching. It's more visual. You put them in the story in that. And then once you've like relayed the particular spec that they should consider to the actual main topic. So it's not just a generic vacuum buying guide. It's about vacuums for kitchens. You can then mention each product that you're comparing. And then if there's anyone that's particularly powerful, you can mention this again, and then you can resell them, because if they read the end of the product reviews, they haven't bought yet. There's been a reason why they haven't bought and clicked something. So you can resell them once you've gone there and retaken them there. And then you can have like the block whether you want to use, or, the various affiliate software, Lasso, AAWP, that have those blocks there. You can have them in each one of those things. And that's useful there. You can even, then above that, what I do is I have the H3, I have the paragraphs that then introduce it and then recommend it, and then a Lasso block underneath. And then I have a ChatGPT generated table, because I'll put the whole article into ChatGPT and say, take the power specs of each vacuum from this, put it into a table with just the power of each vacuum mentioned in this article listed, and it will spit you out a perfect table so that they can directly compare that particular spec. So that if they care about that spec, they've got a comparison right there. And so that's how you create the best buyer's guide that makes you look like an expert, even if you haven't tested stuff. So that's what we do there. Then the FAQs and supporting info go underneath. For the product reviews, we're starting to say mention particular things related to this, but it's much more vague, and I'd rather leave it to them. Apparently, I don't like this, but apparently pros and cons are like an easy thing for Google to scrape and associate with high quality affiliate content. It's not, in my opinion. It's so easy to write basic pros and cons that anyone can do that it isn't a factor in high quality content. But we're now doing pros and cons and everything, because apparently with Google trying to lean up their way of determining document quality, that's becoming more of a factor. I don't know if that's true. That's just what I've heard on Twitter from people that know a lot. And so we're doing pros and cons, but quite a niche thing for the actual brief. And then at the end, what's the differentiator? I have these not talked about how you specifically clean up kitchen stuff with the vacuum enough in this particular situation, having watched 3 YouTube videos and listened to the pain points people expressed. That's what we're hearing the most. Yeah.
Okay. And so you covered a lot of stuff there. Is all of that, the original question was around content brief. So is all this information is in the content brief? So, from the table, from the, H3 headings, all those details, is that all in there?
Sure. Actually, yeah, you're right. I've departed a bit. So there's the writer does everything in the buying guide except the table and the affiliate displays that come at the end. That is added in by the formatter, but they have been taught how to treat the brief post-write to then implement those things. But that's just something that's changed how we ask the writer to write them, because we didn't used to ask them in the brief to both mention the spec, power, battery life, whatever it is, and relate it back to the main topic. Now we're asking them to relate it to both the main topic and the actual product that's best suited if you care about that particular spec the most, so that we can add a retargeted display, click here to buy now, whatever, and then make money again.
Okay, great. Tons of detail. You mentioned a few tools, and I'm going to restate it. Sometimes people, they ask about this later. So Lasso and AAWP, so those help display a feature box or link out to Amazon or other affiliate programs potentially. SEO Minion to get some on-page data. Anything else that you use for on-page data?
We use Ahrefs. Onto the public, we started using search response instead of we're trying to find which one of all the FAQs people also asked, whatever put together things to use. I'm trying to figure out which one's best, but there's so many of them. There's keywords people use, keyword AI, keyword insights, whatever, they're all the same tool, but like repackaged, let's be real. Like, I'll also ask, whatever, they're all the same. We're trying to figure out which one of those to use. We're also using Surfer, but like mostly to optimize rather than write new stuff. But we are now just literally, we're so late to this because I was like against it because I was thought that like we might lose like actual writer, natural first person, like learned insights if we put them into Surfer at the beginning, because it kind of boxes you in with like the NLP queries, right? Because you're like, oh, I see this, I should write about this, rather than having like genuinely like innovative thoughts. But now, like to standardize it, we are now using Surfer for the on-page stuff. But for research, we get the keywords from Ahrefs and the related ones from the also asked keyword, whatever one we're using and trying out at the moment, search response, all them ones. And then we'll also sometimes, if like there's just a bit that we want to find from like FAQs or whatever, we use low fruits just to see what the other ones within there are. And we're now, in some cases, if we think that it's, we just feel like there's something missing in the brief, we'll just go into ChatGPT and be like, what questions would a beginner to best vacuum for kitchens have? And what you can do is like, what unconventional questions would a beginner have? And it will spit you up really random creative ones that no one's thought of before. But you have to say unconventional. But you can't say controversial because it'll refuse to answer it. You say controversial.
Yeah. They try to keep a lockdown on that. Okay, great. That's awesome with the tools there. You mentioned subheadings, and I think, funny enough, like even some of my early sites, like 10 years ago at this point, I did exactly what you're talking about. One of my first sites, I didn't know what I was doing. So I basically created a really good buying guide, largely question-based, which I didn't realize like how well that would work, but it was I didn't know anything about the product or not very much. I was interested, so I came up with the great questions, researched it, came up with the answers, but I did exactly what you said. It was H3 tags. So maybe a couple different sections, H3 tags, very straightforward. And it's interesting, some of the core components, like while Google has changed, our link building methods have changed, some of the core stuff is exactly the same as it was when I started. And I would guess, the 8 to 10 years before that as well. So any other notes on kind of the hierarchy or subheadings or anything like that?
It depends on how like high activation energy the product is. Like, if you're selling a camper van for 15 grand, I wouldn't have the 3 top picks at the top right there because you need to sell them before you just be like, make this enormous purchase. But for most things, you can just have your top picks. But again, you can use various software. I use Lasso for it. But then, normally you have just the top down, full list of them. And then you start with the best one. You go down and down and down. Segment them based on like I'm trying to have the least possible products now. I know this is going on a tangent, but I think this is like a lot of people don't do this enough. Is like, you have your best for beginners, best cheap, best premium, best overall. And you need to, no one seems to be doing this, even though it's so profitable. Everyone has a preconceived notion of themselves. I am a student. I am a successful person. I am intelligent. I'm a good cook, whatever. So much of that is just telling people what people want to identify. And it's like, even if they're on a budget, like this is the best budget option. Oh, this person understands me. All right, I'm going to buy this cheap pack. Like it's so easy. And you should really understand who, like the segments of people are that are coming on. And then you can segment them through there. The only other things I'd mention is that like, depending on the activation energy, you like occasionally you don't want to just have the straight call to action to the top of the display to buy stuff. If it's like, $5 grand furniture or whatever, I don't know what that would be. We have, we call it a roundup block, like, a summary of all of them. Sometimes we use tables, but we try to make it into like, a separate generate block because then it's just a H2 and the list. So it's the cleanest HTML within its own thing, to try and get list featured snippets. It hasn't really worked, but the depending on the level of activation energy on the product, if it's a really expensive thing, rather than have those be direct affiliate links, we'll have them be HTML anchors that go to the product to actually read more itself. But those are niche cases depending, like if you're selling table salt that people have no emotional attachment to, just give them the CTA and tell them to go and they'll go eat. They just want to be told where to go and hide it like sheep. But for a high activation energy where the costs are being wrong, if it's an emotional purchase, no one wants to be left with like a dud set of like car steering wheel. It's more like, like if the cost of being wrong is high, then just take them through slowly. They want to really be like coaxed into the patches where it's and you can, and as long as you're empathetic and you really understand the problem and you do your research, that's no problem. They'll still be ready to make the sale and it'll be even more rewarding. Usually the affiliate programs understand that and they pay you higher commissions if you can sell on those sales. But understand it is also if people just want to be told and go. So like you'll do like 90% of the sales just from the top biggest block for this low activation energy because they're usually lower in price.
Cool. Yep. And I'll give a quick example and then we'll move on. I recently purchased like a USB cable, like an extension or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I don't care. I would like buy that off a quick recommendation versus the camera that I'm hooking it up to, which is, 30 times more expensive. Maybe I want to do more research. I'm going to be using it for some different things. So the camera is really important. I want to like understand all the features, the problems, the pros, the cons, blah, blah, blah. But a USB cable, it doesn't really matter that much and the price reflects it. So that's a perfect example of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. We're going a little over time, so I'm going to wrap it up here fast. I know you're a busy man. So last couple things, videos and images and any kind of, I guess, graphics that you may include. Can you talk about that and how important it is for your posts?
I don't know if it's important. We try to improve them, but honestly, I haven't seen any change. I see so many bad sites who've like copied and pasted from like Amazon or wherever do find that. I'm not sure that anyone actually like, I think honestly, it's like Google again, like with the most of the EAT stuff, it's mostly like, we'd love this to be true, but then in actual reality, I'm not sure it is. I think if you really have tested the products and you can show and you've got a video and stuff, that's an advantage. I think that, sorry, I think that Google can tell, especially if you use the same as schema to link to your YouTube channel that it's come from the same person, you haven't just used like a third party thing. But a lot of these, for single product reviews, I think is a key thing. I don't think you'll rank without the real review. But a lot of these buyer's guides, no one cares. Like, I don't know. I think it affects conversions. I think people want to buy from people that are clearly tested the stuff. But I haven't seen a significant shift from when we started showing real product tests versus when it was just a white background on a product, like a vacuum on remove the background on Canva and now it's just on a white background.
Okay. Cool. So nothing too special. Do you include a certain number of images per 1,000 words or something like that? Or is it just whatever it needs to be?
We probably will once we figured it out. But at the moment, I'm not organized enough with that. It's mostly the instruction to the people formatting, like the VAs who work with us to help make it look amazing. It's just like whenever the description of the text calls for it, try and augment that, especially if it's more difficult and would benefit from a more visual thing. So, for example, if you were showing why certain carpet cleaners are good for a type of carpet. I don't even know if there's more than one type of carpet, but let's say there's, right? And so if you pick, you get a Canva block that's just blank white and you get a picture of one type of vacuum on the carpet and you show that doesn't work properly. Yeah, it's still dirty. And then you have the other type that then shows clean and you can have like a versus symbol in the middle or whatever. That's a nice way of showing that without communicating with words. But how can you communicate well without just like repeating what you said, just as like an infographic, just writing this vacuum is not good for this. This one is better, whatever. Like and that requires creativity and skill. And we've been really fortunate that we've had super talented people that have helped, even unprompted, just like really, they just get it and you can't teach that.
Fantastic. And quick question, how many of the products do you actually have? Like, do you actually test some of the stuff? And some people are pretty, I would say, polarized on this topic where they're like, if people don't test the product, then you can't trust them. And I test everything, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, where do you fit in the spectrum here?
Sure. If I wanted to be really out there and reveal my niches behind this screen right now, you'll see all the stuff that we've tested. But obviously I'm not going to turn the camera around and blow up everything that I work for because I think it's risky to reveal your niches. And there's a reason why we keep them secret. But we test more than our competition. And what I always say is like, that story where the bear's chasing the people and he turns to his mate and he goes, I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you. I don't need to test them all. I just need to be the best alternative because I tested everyone else and Google doesn't want to show people that have not tested it. But by default, you show the one that's tested the most because it's the nearest to perfect. It's just the least imperfect, even if it's mostly imperfect.
Cool. All right. So what's coming up in the next year? What do you have on the horizon here?
Sure. So by the end of the month, I need to have my house in order to move to being only 1 day a week, which is scary because, they've become these sites that are in my life. It's so comfortable to keep working on what I know rather than venture into the unknown, right? So but the project is so interesting. Am I allowed to briefly introduce what the new project is?
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm going to pause and we'll leave this part in. I'm going to pause. Okay, so I screened Jamie here and I said it's okay. So yeah, what are you going to work on?
Sure. So I was in a really rough state when I pushed a new website and lost half my traffic because it was a technical issue when pushing a new site. And one person who offered to help at the time was someone who I'd used the software before. He's Andrew, who runs Lasso. And so we got talking weeks after that. And eventually he asked if I was interested in heading up marketing at Lasso, the affiliate marketing plugin. And at the beginning, I was a customer, I was a fan. It was thank you, but I'm doing my stuff. I need to just focus on this for now. And then we got on a call and he was telling me some of the cool stuff that's coming in the future. And I was like, right, let's do it. And so it's really cool. I'm very excited about it. I'm talking to all of my friends about it and telling them how excited I am for being stuck in. And I've got a failure on my record in SaaS a couple of years ago when I wasn't full-time the size I wanted to do this stuff. And I felt I wasn't ready then. And I feel I'm ready now. And everything that I've worked with these and on marketing, digital marketing, especially SEO. But I want to prove that I can do it on a wider level. And with such an amazing opportunity, I feel you've got to take it to be involved in such a cool project and tech and stuff. So that's the, I'm excited.
That's cool. And it's one observation is when you have a specific deadline that you have to close everything out, you figure it out. A lot of, things that you may have wasted time on in the past in a different scenario, you don't worry about them and you end up closing everything out. You get your stuff in place and then you have a clear end date, clear start date. So it puts pressure on you in hopefully a positive way to just close it out. So
hopefully, at least I'm absolutely learning as much as I can. But in terms of what I would do for a living, affiliate marketing, to move into this it was a more natural move rather than okay, I've got to get my house in order and then learn the completely new. I understand the customers. I'm not used to that more, but it makes it an easier move.
Right on. Very good. Well, where should people find you?
Sure. So I do income reports. I'm debating whether I continue doing them, not because it's going down, but we did, to get into Q1, we did 43.5K January. So it was almost half, but you can expect a drop. But I do the income report still. I'm debating stopping them just because I've noticed more competition in my niches. And I think there are ways of finding people's size relative. And I think they may be contributing to that. So I think I might trend away from that. But I still write everything. I write about affiliate marketing stuff like that on increasing.com. My Twitter is Jamie, JAMIE _IF. And I occasionally send newsletters when I can get it together as well, if you will.
Awesome. We'll link up to all that stuff in the show notes and description so people can check it out. And hopefully in a little while, we can get an update. There's a couple of things that I thought we could talk about. One is just where AI and algorithm stuff is going with the different search engines. The other that you mentioned early on was just how you improve content. So you're at a point where you need to improve content. And that's the other side of this coin of, writing fresh content. Well, at some point, you have to maintain everything and stay on top of it. And that is a whole slightly more complicated process, I would venture to guess, because you have to take into account what you did before and then what you need to do. So 2 topics we can probably cover. Yeah.
I'm not going to get into it and bore you with the details, but we had the most interesting SEO conundrum of my SEO affiliate marketing career doing this today, because you'll never get more deep and learn more unless except in the optimizing part. You're looking for those 1% things rather than just I H2 here and whatever here.
Yeah.
We had an article that's used to do 2,500 page views a month, and it, would do $300-$400 if I had to guess. It's now gone down to a lot lower than that. It's doing around 700 clicks a month. And while the close to expectation, only 170 of those are from Google Search Console. It's because it's doing weirdly well on Bing. So we wanted to make that target, instead of just targeting the main keyword, we wanted to make it cheap keyword. But the conundrum now is, do we risk destabilizing Bing by making this change because it's ranking for that? So it brings up interesting, even further levels before that we hadn't considered. So it's been really interesting. I've learned a lot from the optimizing, and we can go into more detail another time if you want, but it brings all these interesting, multi-search engine, questions to think about.
Well, that's crazy, right? So again, as we alluded to earlier, and then a great teaser for future segments with you, Jamie, but Google has something like 90% of the market share. Let's say it shifts, right? Let's say there's a pretty big destabilization, and then, maybe we optimize a little differently, or this topic area is more likely to be searched on more often on Bing because of the demographic or something. And then you optimize it differently for different search engines. So all of a sudden, the skills would transfer, but then you have a more complicated problem to solve with multivariant issues, just generally. Very interesting. Who knows? In 6 months, it may be a totally different conversation, but very cool. Okay. Well, we have to stop now or we're going to keep talking all day, buddy. All right. We'll link up, and thanks, Jamie. Good catching up.
Thank you very much for having me, Doug. Cheers.